You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host, author, and occasional misanthrope, Juliette Miranda. Go to theunwritablerant.com and you can subscribe on iTunes or connect with the show on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, hey there, y'all. This is Juliette Miranda. Welcome to episode 101 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. There's never been a better time to have a cocktail, y'all. So what do you say? Grab a glass, fill it up, and let's say cheers. Whew. Oh, y'all. Today I am drinking Joseph Magnus bourbon. This was actually a special delivery bourbon. It was sent to me by Matt, who is a podcast host over at the ACPN network. And I gotta say, Matt, I am thoroughly in your debt because this bourbon is outstanding. This is a sourced bourbon, so it's been aged about 8 or 9 years and then triple cask finished in sherry and cognac casks. Since this is sourced, we don't have a mash bill, but because it is a bourbon, we know that it is at least 51% corn. After that, it really doesn't matter because this stuff is so delicious, I will drink it all day long. Right off the bat, it comes off kind of like a wine to me. It's incredibly smooth, very fruity, and it actually has a little bit of a coffee flavor to it. As it opens up a little bit, you start to get more of that vanilla sweetness, and in the end, it's just remarkably smooth. It's a little low on spice, but because you've got that great sort of wine cognac flavor to it, it doesn't need it. Just a delightful, smooth, easy-to-drink bourbon, and I'm loving it. And I gotta say, I want like 4 more bottles of it. So, Matt, I'm raising up my glass to you and saying thank you so much. Cheers, friend. Well, y'all, we are officially in the month of August. This is a little depressing because it means a whole lot of things. Obviously, it's the last month of festival season, and summer is kind of starting to come to a close. But really, the biggest thing that August marks here where I live is the fact that it is the time when my townhome community is on the verge of a complete and total social breakdown. It doesn't matter how many neighbors come and go, this happens every single year without fail. I'm not really sure what causes it. Maybe we all just live a little too close to each other in this townhome community. Or maybe being outside so much, we're just more exposed to each other's eccentricities. But I'll tell you, every August, someone or something inevitably blows the hell up. I suppose I could, on occasion, be the one leading that madhouse revolt. In fact, I may have done just that last weekend. Shockingly, it was not in response to the obnoxious children of my town. No, this time my decorum snapped thanks to one simple thing: a parking space. Everyone in my townhome community has a 1-car garage and a driveway. But located throughout the neighborhood are communal spaces. They're meant for guest parking, deliveries, and general convenience. Admittedly, some people did abuse these spaces. But that was mostly the hillbillies of my neighborhood. The ones whose garages were busting like ticks because they were so full of crap. They were using these communal spaces as their own personal used car lots. At least until management started issuing evictions. Which pretty much means that these spaces are now fair game. Except on my half of the neighborhood, where the one communal spot that we have is regularly patrolled by a neighbor I'm calling the Commando. She's not exactly the nicest lady on the block. Just looking at her, you can see that she's the kind of person who has hypertension by sheer willpower. It's written all over her pinched expression and the way that she carries herself like a wrecking ball. I don't have proof, but I am positive that she is the one who called the cops on my guy and I this summer when our driveway drinking got a little rowdy one night. And it's a safe assumption, seeing as how at least 3 times every weekend, we watch the Commando come barreling out of her house to take issue with someone over some imaginary offense. Sometimes it's the groundskeepers, who apparently, and likely deliberately, leave piles of fertilizer on her doorstep. Sometimes it's someone who is walking their dog just a little too close to her lawn. But mostly, what sets her off is anyone who dares use that communal parking spot for more than 2 minutes. The Commando will stand on her doorstep, staring at the offending car in the space, heaving many heavy sighs as if she has never seen such imposition and intrusion. I'm not sure if it's when the buzzing in her head starts or stops, but after about 2 minutes, she will grab her cell phone, walk up to the car, and begin snapping photos. Oh yeah, this asinine Ansel Adams will get pictures from every angle, as well as close-ups of the license plate and VIN number. Now, of course, seeing stuff like this going on by their car, it's about this time when the owner is going to come running out and confront the Commando. Now, the Commando's stance is a very firm, "You can't park here." And she delivers it, arms crossed, looking really stern, very school-marmish. And it's effective. Most of the guys who are, just delivering pizzas or whatever just kind of move along. But if the person actually attempts to argue with the Commando, she will threaten to send the pictures to the management office towing company. Now, I've never actually seen her have a car towed, but it makes for a really good threat. And from our vantage in the driveway this entire summer, I have watched this thug force everyone, from people with handicap plates to grandparents, across the complex for no other reason than that she doesn't like seeing cars parked next to her house. That's it. That's her only motivation. I'm confident of that. Now, a couple of neighbors attempted to overthrow the Commando by complaining about her to the management office. I'm not sure what they hope to achieve by that. I mean, really, it's no better than telling a babysitter that some kids spit in your ice cream. To take down someone like the Commando, this neighborhood needed a leader. They needed a vague sociopath. They needed me. To be honest, I have zero interest in that parking space. But I was tired of having my day drinking interrupted by people bitching about it. And, more importantly, I was still harboring a fair amount of resentment and having cops invade my driveway thanks to her. And the more I simmered with it, the more annoyed I got. Who did the Commando think she was, anyway? So my guy and I had a small driveway party planned one afternoon. Nothing fancy, just us, a few neighbors and friends, the grill, and a bunch of booze. It occurred to me that this could be just the opportunity I needed to cut that Commando off. So on the day of the party, I got ready for battle. And my first step? Parking my car in the communal space. This is something I would have done anyway to keep our driveway clear. I mean, that space is the closest and most logical choice. Of course, by parking there, I was also deliberately raising the red flag over our microcosm of savages and saps. That was kind of the point. And right on cue, the Commando burst from her home. I wave at her from my driveway, attempting to be neighborly, but she's not interested. She plows into the street, phone in hand, and begins her psychobabble routine about how people can't park there and she'll have me towed. She sputters a little as she says all this, clearly annoyed that I'm not running to my car to move it. I take my sweet time getting up, pause to smell a flower, and I casually meander over to the parking space. Gee, I say, all sweetness and light. There are no signs up or anything. It looks like a regular old parking spot to me. Her eyeballs bulge. Her cheeks undulate a little as she spits out a response. This is a temporary space, I'm informed. It is not meant for parking. Now this is exactly what I wanted her to say. I look at her and reply, "So you're telling me that this is strictly a convenience space for the community and guests?" Well, she squints at me, kind of confused and suspicious, which she should be, but agrees. That's exactly what this space is. Well, so be it. I blow her a little kiss, and then move my car back to the driveway. My guy has been watching all of this go down with his eyebrows raised. I hadn't informed him of my little plan, but he clearly knows something is about to break bad. He motions to all of our party supplies, wondering where we're going to put them if not on the driveway. Silly guy. Where else would they all go? But in the community space. Oh, it was genius, y'all. As soon as our guests start to arrive, I ask people to grab what they can. Chairs, folding tables, the cooler. And the neighbors start to pick up on what I'm doing, and they join in. And the next thing you know, I'm pushing the grill across the street, acting as grand marshal to a parade of rebellious community members and guests, all anxious to take back their parking space. It is amazing the way an act of revolt can bring the community together. Before, they'd all been willing to just back on down to the Commando. But now, as a united front, they were ready to take a stand. And of course, the Commando tried to break up our little parking space party. She stood at the threshold of the space, watching all of us knocking back beers and bourbon and starting to get the grill going. And she just fumes. You can't do this! It was a little like having the Wicked Witch of the West land in Oz. And I just look up at her and I go, what are you going to do? Have us all towed? And I gotta say, that effectively ended the Commando's reign of terror. But here is the truly beautiful part. In the days that have passed, people still aren't parking their cars in that spot. Seeing as how that spot is in direct proximity to her front room window, everybody is instead using it as a great place to gather and chat. One woman actually stained a coffee table in it. And just because I'm me, I may have suggested that some kids wash their bikes in it. And ultimately, peace, or otherwise, in our silly little neighborhood has been restored. At least until the next time my late-night driveway drinking gets on. And with that, I'm going to have a little bit more bourbon. Hang on, y'all. Oh, this bourbon is so wonderful. Now, I know Joseph Magnus bourbon is located, I believe, in the D.C. area. So if you have a chance to grab a bottle, do it. So in thinking about the reign of terror of the Commando, that reminded me of another sort of terror. And I have to wonder, have y'all ever seen the movie Cannibal Holocaust? Of course I have. And I've got to admit, I felt oddly exhilarated and slightly dirty while watching it. I just have a thing for mutilation, gore, and general exploitation. Now, I wouldn't really be giving it all that much thought right now, except that I experienced the very same reaction while planning my wedding. You see, my guy and I are about to celebrate our wedding anniversary, and every year he never fails to remind me of that period of time leading up to our wedding where I was consumed by what can only be described as a seething, silk-clad demon. Personally, I blame Martha Stewart. I never in a million years expected to fall intoxicated by Martha's wedding council. But that's generally because I tend to think that conventional rules and stereotypes just don't apply to me. Now, this isn't as wonderfully narcissistic as it sounds, believe me. Usually it just means that I'm that 0.01% who catches swine flu after a flu shot, or whose laptop battery explodes when it gets too hot. And two, this is partly why I refuse to jump out of a plane. Clearly, I would be the one deploying a spare tire instead of a parachute. Nevertheless, in the months before our wedding, I could usually be found locked in my closet, twitching and drooling over wedding magazines and scribbling down ideas in my secret little wedding notebook. Gilded china? I wanted it. Monogrammed crystal whiskey decanters? I needed them. Cake toppers shaped like manatees? Shut up and take my money. That surreal lore of gleaming Art Deco decor, pristine white dresses, and towering arches of cake just had me engrossed and frothing like a 12-year-old boy watching his first women in prison movie. My eyeballs actually started to hurt from lusting so intently. Every single drop of girly instinct that I usually managed to suppress with layers of snark and disinterest came bubbling out of me like pink champagne. And by the end of it all, I think I may have been weeping Skittles. I admit, it was a little odd to refer to myself as a bride, and even more so to categorize myself, however temporarily, as one of the Legion. But that white dress somehow smothered my usual disregard and replaced it with something much more sinister. Desire. Here's the thing. I always wanted to be a bride. I know, it's cliche and a bit of an antiquated notion, but marriage has always been incredibly important to me. The fact that I slugged through 30-plus years without so much as a pre-engagement or a shotgun attests to the fact that it wasn't just the wedding I wanted, but a lifelong relationship with the right man. And when I found my guy, I was ready to celebrate with all of our friends and family at a wonderfully decadent party. So I sunk my nails into that wedding like a slightly overripe tomato, and y'all, I made a bit of a mess. I had no experience planning an event of this magnitude. All I had was that stack of stupid magazines and raw, inhuman excitement to completely cloud all of my better decision-making skills. My first and most significant screw-up came in choosing our wedding venue. Rather than touring several locations and doing the sensible thing like making an informed choice, I leapt at the first place we visited as if it had bourbon coming out of its faucets. It was a luxury hotel on Chicago's Lakeshore Drive. Now, y'all, here's a side note. I'm not one to name names on my podcast, particularly knowing in advance exactly where this one is going to fall off of its wacky tracks. So I will only tell you this much about the hotel because it will be important later. This hotel is characterized by a single letter. Now, to its credit, this place is breathtaking, over-the-top spectacular. Everything about their wedding facilities appeared perfect. From the candlelit path to the ceremony room to the panoramic view of the entire city from the top floor reception area. This was the contemporary equivalent of all my lavish, stupid Cinderella-esque dreams. If the wedding coordinator happened to seem somewhat vacant at the time that we met her, I wrote it off. Enough Vogue wannabes crossed my path in my Los Angeles public relation days that I tend to regard the lot of them with a kind of self-righteous bemusement. They all just try so very hard to be fashionable and in on everything that it's hard to not giggle just the slightest bit behind their perfectly manicured backs. Besides, what they lack in general courtesy, they typically make up for with ambition and a very high regard for money. So when my guy looked at me and asked if this is what I wanted, I didn't think. I just reacted. Agreements were made, papers signed, phrases like first right of refusal were spoken, and we all shook talons. Or hands. Whatever. And that was the last we heard from the hotel. 3 months passed, and the only confirmation we had of our impending wedding was the save-the-date cards we'd sent. I was getting itchy to schedule crucial events like tastings and floral previews, and all I could get from the hotel was voicemail. Every day I would leave another message, each growing in so much anxious tension that I was likely speaking in tongues by the end. Wedding-savvy friends did their best to calm my frothings, but I knew in the pit of my wannabe gilded soul that something was wrong. The tip-off? Not receiving a call back after offering to leave a briefcase full of cash in front of the wedding coordinator's door. When this hotel chain ignores money, Satan has either stepped down from his reign of their corporate offices, or we were out of a wedding venue. I admit my first reaction was hysterical sobbing. I felt like a complete failure. How was I ever going to manage being married if I couldn't figure out how to plan a fucking wedding? I knew I had to reach that wedding coordinator. Question was how. And then what? It's not like I could spike her coffee with Visine, which, believe me, was my first inclination. But remember that demon I mentioned before? That silk-clad wedding demon? I think it was right about then when it tapped me on the shoulder. "It's your day," it hissed. I could feel its silky scales coiling around me like a living corset, squeezing the life out of my every normal instinct and injecting me with hellfire. Damn right it's my day. I'd waited too long to let this one little wench ruin my plans. I was going to find her and throttle the truth right out of her. I pound into our living room ready for action. I look at my guy and I say, "Baby, grab your keys. We're going to the wedding hotel." My guy knew better than to argue with a demon. Oh, he tried to distract me once we got into the city, but not even the lore of Tiffany and Company was going to sway me from vengeance. The hotel stood on a fashionable corner, towering over us in silent menace. Somewhere in that building was the wedding wench, likely busying herself powdering her nose and puncturing soles, completely oblivious to the rage that hovered 11 floors below. Her perky little receptionist paled when she saw me, my eyes blazing and puffing steam. She may not have known who I was, but she knew I'd be trouble. So I'm calm first. I asked to speak with the coordinator. Now I know, of course, that it is the receptionist's job to protect that vile little wedding wench from scorned brides to be like me. And she was exceptionally good at it over the phone. But when confronted with the reality, this sorry little chickie floundered. Her darting eyes gave away the location of the wedding wench, who wasn't off on business at all, but instead hiding behind a conference room door, her pink nails peeking from behind the vertical blinds lining the window, quivering. Someone somewhere must have pressed a button that said "Engage Wedding Demon," because that beast unfurled its wings, bore its teeth, and began kicking the window separating me from the coordinator. The demon and I are screaming, "Let me in, damn it, and tell me what you did with my wedding date. I know you gave my date away. I want to hear you say it in person." The useless receptionist is cowering at her desk, and my guy is by the door. Up to this point in our relationship, he'd really only been witness to marginal freakouts and hunger-related outbursts. This mania was something new to both of us. I'm a little ashamed to admit, every single horrible bridezilla cliche that you can think of, that was me wrapped up right there. So why my guy didn't run screaming from the room is beyond me. And I start tapping my finger on the window as if it were an aquarium. Open the door. And she does nothing. So I keep tapping. Open the damn door. Our deranged game of Three Little Pigs was having no effect on her. But I can see that she's getting nervous. The wedding wench is now chewing on a lock of hair, so I decide to step up my game. "If you do not open this door, by the time I get through with you and your hotel's entire chain of command, this goddamn place will be renamed the fucking J." She opened the door. And this is where my guy, thank heavens for my guy, swiftly took over, the rational cop to my deranged one. And he efficiently extracts the entire story from the wedding wench. It seems a local church wanted the venue that same night for a fundraiser and had paid the entire cost up front. 1, who does that? And 2, what church does something like that? Apparently, neglecting to inform us of this was an oversight. Well, had my head been able to rotate, I'm sure it would have. I am seething. Thankfully, my guy makes an excellent exorcist. He was able to quell my wedding demon and put that wench in her place by retrieving not just our deposit, but the expense of the save-the-date cards we now needed to remake and resend. Even better, however, was that he still wanted to marry me, demon and all. Considering the opulence and drama, many sociologists have referred to weddings as being a disturbing social commentary. What I find rather amusing, though not surprising, is how that exact phrase was also used to praise the movie Cannibal Holocaust. As for my own wedding experience, well, that fell somewhere in the middle. And here we are today, swilling bourbon and about to have another wedding anniversary. And with that, I'm raising my glass and toasting to my guy. Cheers. Whew, well, all right. So my guy and I are about to pack up our bags and head off to the magical city of New Orleans. We have several days worth of decadence to indulge in, and I cannot wait to see what kind of trouble we find. And if you happen to have been to New Orleans before or know of any great places that we should visit, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Morning Neurosis, and I would love to know where we should go. And with that, I'm going to pack up my bags, y'all. Hope you have a great week. I'll be back to chat with you again next. Cheers, y'all.
Go to theunwritablерant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. You can hear new episodes of The Unwritable Rant on radiovegas.rocks every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern and on IPMNation.com on Saturdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and hear best of episodes every weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter at Morning Neurosis.
Girl, you was pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia.